Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Retirement Planning Simplified. I'm Joe Curry, along with my co-host, as always, Lindsay Wilson. How are you, Lindsay?
I'm very good, Joe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. One question before we jump right into this today is, how was the first week of your play?
It was amazing, sold out. So we're going in, rounding into the second week, and if anybody is again in the Peterborough area, it's Peterborough Theatre Guild, Girl in the Goldfish Bowl, and we'd love to have you.
Awesome. That's great. I can't wait to see it this week.
Yeah, you're coming on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be great. I can't wait. And also, so many of our clients are going too, which is awesome.
Yes, it's been wonderful to have the client support. It's been absolutely marvelous to see those friendly faces there.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Yeah. So for today, short and sweet. So this one, I'm just going to run through it on my own, just because I'm more or less telling a story. But Lindsay, I thought just based on, some of the feedback we've received from clients and specifically a client story I'll talk about today, I just wanted to talk about why, as a client, with your professional advisors, whether it's your accountant, your lawyer, your financial planner, investment advisor, whatever it is, you should never feel like just another number, right? You shouldn't feel like someone's kind of taking your order. There really needs to be a level, like a personal relationship there where your advisors really understand who you are, because without that relationship, I don't think that they can really give you the best advice. Mm-hmm. Have you any thoughts on that before we jump into it?
Well, I think that's one of the things we do well. And one of the things that we really work towards is knowing our clients well. And I think if they become more than just a number, they become people who we can truly support because we understand what their goals and ambitions and values are. And I feel like, to me, it's one of my favorite parts of getting to know our clients and having those strong client relationships and knowing that we can support them in a variety of capacities.
Yeah. And I think maybe the last thing I would add to that is, in doing all of that and understanding our clients on that deeper level, it just builds a deeper connection, which just automatically makes us want to try harder and go the extra mile for all of our clients, right? Because we have that deeper relationship.
100%. Absolutely. Because we not only do we know, say, the clients, we know their family, we might know their children, we might know their parents. We do work. I think we do have that strong relationship that makes us want to work harder and be as supportive as we can.
100%, as you said. So with that, we'll jump in. We'll have a kind of a story of where it's not always the case and, why it's so important to make sure you have those relationships. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you.
Too many times we've heard stories about how people just feel like a number when they're working with different advisors, right? I think Lindsay and I were talking about some of the feedback we received from clients recently as we were reaching out. And, the things that we continue to hear when we ask about what's the most valuable thing we provide or their favorite thing about the experience of working with us. And it always comes back to we're approachable. They feel like we really know them. It's a personalized service. And so we think that's how you should feel when you're working with your advisor, because when someone's advising you on your investments, your financial planning, your taxes, your estate planning, how can they give you good advice without really knowing you, right? So, do you feel like your advisor kind of dropped you into a high fee mutual fund, the same one that they put every other client into? Or do you exchange your tax info with your accountant but never really have a conversation? And when you did your estate documents, did it feel like they just asked you a couple high level questions, gathered your documents, and then just kind of plopped it all out into a templated will, again, the same as everybody else? Unfortunately, that's often the case. It's often what we hear people coming in to see us say they felt like when they were dealing with previous advisors. And today, I just want to talk about, kind of what that relationship should be like, but also I'm going to kind of tell you through a story with one of our clients recently. So again, whether it's tax, retirement planning, whatever it is, you need to make sure that your advisors are really getting to know you and understand your situation before they're giving you advice. It's kind of like if you go to the doctor and they don't diagnose, right? They're not asking questions and trying to understand what's going on before they prescribe. Well, it's malpractice, right? And it should be the same thing when it comes to your professional advisors as well. As I said, I'm going to tell a story about one of our clients and kind of the experience they had. So recently, this client, their spouse had passed away and he wanted to update his estate planning. So he has no kids living, had kids, but no kids living. So just has grandkids and a son-in-law. As far as beneficiaries for this client, it was the son-in-law, the grandkids. There was kind of a pod of extended friends and family. And also there was one significant charitable donation that was supposed to happen when he passes away, and also a couple smaller charitable donations. So that was kind of the situation. And simultaneously, the client had reached out to the lawyer to book a meeting and had done intake with the lawyer to start preparing the will. But I had them come into the office so that we could talk through what that estate plan should look like and make sure he's considering all the different options. As far as the son-in-law goes, some of the things to consider, there's no worries with the son-in-law as far as how he handles money. He feels like, he's already a good steward of gifts that he's given to the son-in-law in the past. So there's no really worries about there. He wants him to be the primary beneficiary. As far as the charity goes, specifically the main one, options are, he could gift upon his death, but he's not going to spend all the money that he has. So we could also look at gifting today, right? And some of the advantages of that is we can gift appreciated securities. So if there's a capital gain, so let's say you own a stock, you paid $100,000 for that stock, the stock has grown to $200,000. Well, if you sell that, you have a $100,000 gain. And as of right now, half of that is going to go into your income and you're going to pay tax on it. But if you donate that $200,000 stock, that's the whole value, directly to charity, well, there's no capital gain there. So no tax on that gain, plus you get the full $200,000 charitable tax receipt. So that's something that's available to this client at this point. Additionally, in considerations with the grandchildren, they're in their late 20s. One's okay with money, not rolling in it by any chance, but doing okay, holds a steady job. So there's not a whole lot to worry about there. But the other one is, unable to manage their finances. They bounce around job to job, currently unemployed, doesn't appear like he's looking for any work. So there's some real concerns there about him getting a big lump sum of money. So, and that's the client's concern, but also the father's really worried about handing that money again and what that might do as far as, not allowing that grandchild to really grow up and figure out how to be financially independent on their own. Right. But on the same time, the client wants to make sure that their grandkids eventually get the same amount of money. He still wants to treat them fairly. So, there's a bunch of different considerations here. So there's some options. The client could just leave a lump sum to, all the different beneficiaries as a lump sum. We could look at leaving some money to the grandkids in an annuity. So they don't get a lump sum, but they're going to get a paycheck, so to speak, for a certain amount of time or for life. There's a couple different ways we could look at that. So that way, again, they're not getting all this money to spend and blow at once. But on the same hand, we're maybe creating a bit of a crutch there. And then alternatively, we could also look at trust, right? So leaving money in trust, potentially having the father as the trustee. We put some instructions on that to protect those assets, maybe have them get some chunks of money over time and into the future, give some discretion to their father to be able to dole out money as he sees fit. So, that really would allow the client to continue to control those assets to an extent from the grave. So, these are conversations that I had with the client. And, as I mentioned, she'd already started talking to the lawyer. And the lawyer had none of these conversations. So even though they had the intake meeting already, there was no conversations about all these potential goals and the concerns of the client. It was very kind of straightforward, like, who do you want to get the money? And I was not there, but that's kind of the way that the client explained it to me. And they hadn't really realized that, maybe there's some other options about how they're leaving money to their beneficiaries or even giving money today, so to speak. We walked through this whole conversation. We kind of built out I guess we'd call it like a draft estate plan of how things could look based on all those more in-depth conversations about, again, what the client was really worried about, what the client's son-in-law was really worried about with his kids. And also, just making sure we were clear on, who she wanted to get the money and what that meant to her. I had requested that the client put me in touch with the lawyer and then the three of us to get together to have a conversation and discuss this all together to make sure that we're on the same page. Now, the lawyer was not open to that as an option, but was open to having a phone call with me. So I sent over a draft of that estate planning and kind of the plan, the outline, included the client on that draft and set up a call with the lawyer. And so basically the result of the call with the lawyer was coming when it came to, how we could potentially dole out the funds to the kids, the grandkids, and using a trust. It was basically, we don't typically do this for adult children, was kind of number one. And so my thinking on that is, well, what's typical is not necessarily what's right for every client, right? So based on this client's concerns, a trust is, it's something that we probably should be talking about how that might fit the situation, because she does want to have some control over these funds and making sure that they're not detrimentally affecting those grandkids, right? So, whatever might be typical isn't necessarily right for everybody. The lawyer also said, it probably doesn't make sense to have a trust because there's a cost to administer the trust. So there's definitely costs for anything like this. There's going to be costs to set it up, costs to maintain it. At the end of the day, we did the math on it. The cost to maintain this would be about 0.5% of the value of the assets in the trust. So yeah, there's a cost there, but relative to what the inheritance is being left to the kids, it's a pretty minor cost, at least one where we should educate the client, again, on how the trust could potentially benefit them based on what their concerns are and what that cost is. So then they can make more of an educated decision around it rather than just assuming it's not a fit for them. And also, another concern is we would not want to create any friction between the trustee and the beneficiaries. So, of course, if there's a trustee, beneficiaries who want the money and they feel like that trustee is withholding it, there could be some friction there. So for us, one of the things that we always are encouraging our clients to do is have family meetings and talk about these things, right? So let's educate the client, let's educate the trustee, let's have a family meeting to get everybody on the same page, get all the cards on the table and see if that's going to be a fit, something that's going to work for everybody. Aside from just getting this all set up, it's also making sure that the beneficiaries are all clear on, why grandpa did this and why he set all this up for them, right? So it also doesn't mean that it has to be the dad who's the trustee. If we, figure this all out and it seems like maybe this will cause too much friction that we don't want to take on, there's other options, right? Like corporate trustee, for example. So again, the point is with all these different things is not that any of them are not valid kind of considerations, but again, are we considering, do we know the client and do we know what's important to them so that we can then come back with advice that fits their situation and at least educate them on the options that are available? Okay. So at the end of the day, when this is all said and done, was the trust kind of the end all be all? No, absolutely not. In fact, we didn't even end up using a trust when we got it all set up. But we did simplify things for the client, and the client's feeling a lot more comfortable about how things are set up now. So some of the highlights from what we ended up doing was they actually in the middle of leaving a large gift to charity right now. So that's kind of in the works. So the charity, they can use that money right now, and he's going to get recognition while he's still alive. And he's, also beyond the fact that he's seeing that donation made and going to see that money being used, he's also getting, a significant tax break today. So not paying any tax on those capital gains, getting a significant donation back that's going to allow him to save some money in taxes in the few years, kind of over the next few years, I should say. Beyond that, what do we end up doing with the grandkids? Well, actually, there is no trust, as I mentioned, but the client decided that he wanted to leave all of the money to the son-in-law. And now, is this a bulletproof plan? Of course not. But again, this comes back to understanding the client, their goals, and having these conversations with them. So at the end of the day, the client said, look, I trust my son-in-law. I already gift him money. He's responsible with the money. I know he loves the kids. And he just wants what's best for them, which is why, these concerns were all brought up in the first place. At the very end of the day, if my son-in-law kept this money and used it for himself, I know that means it's because he needs it, and I'm okay with that. But I also know that, I've shared my wishes with him. I know he knows that I want the kids to get, the same amount of money. I want them to get some of that inheritance. And, they've talked about, when it makes sense for them to get the money, and the fact that she's okay with leaving it in his discretion, knowing his kids, because he knows them better than anybody else. So at the end of the day, big charitable gift today. The son-in-law is getting the majority of the assets if something happens to the client. There is some extended family and friends I mentioned to get a piece of the residual, but everything else goes to the son-in-law, and then he will dole it out to his kids, who will eventually benefit from that. And like I said, at the end of the day, this just kind of shows how having, those deeper conversations and really knowing our clients allows us to give them a lot better advice rather than just kind of the rule of thumb or the boilerplate kind of plan. So hopefully in listening to this, you're really understanding the importance of working with advisors who get you, they understand you, they're around to advise you as time goes on, as life changes. And if that's not how you feel, then you should probably consider those relationships and whether they're the best fit for you. So one thing I'm going to jump or add into the show notes here, talking about kind of this estate planning piece, is we'll put our estate planning registry in there. So just, I've talked about this before, but as kind of an add-on, to this conversation about getting our estate documents in place, as you can see, it's not all about having a will and powers of attorney. Those are important. Those are kind of the foundation, but you need to have a plan, have some discussions around what you want this to look like to make sure that when you put these documents into place, they're reflecting your real wishes. Again, not just a template. And then after that, it's when the documents are in place, it's then kind of taking inventory on everything else that you have, making sure that your executors are able to, find where all your investment accounts, where are all your bank accounts, where are all your important papers, your insurance, who are your advisors. All these things are also important to have inventory on because the will does not tell anyone all of that. And so it's great, again, having that will in place. But if something happens to you and you haven't communicated and put all this together for them, there's a lot of stress there that we've seen with some of our clients' kids who haven't had this in place. So we really want to make sure you're organizing that. The estate planner, if you want that, actually, the best way to do it is just give us an email, info@retirementplanningsimplified.ca. That's info@retirementplanningsimplified.ca. And we will just shoot you a copy of the PDF. And that's it for today. Have a good one.
Investment services are provided through Matthews & Associates Investments of Aligned Capital Partners Incorporated, an approved trade name of Aligned Capital Partners Inc., ACPI. Only investment-related products and services are offered through ACPI/Matthews & Associates Investments of ACPI and covered by the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. Tax planning, financial planning, and insurance services are provided through Matthews & Associates. Matthews & Associates is an independent company separate and distinct from ACPI/Matthews & Associates Investments of ACPI. Matthews & Associates are not licensed tax professionals, and you should consult with your tax advisor before acting on any recommendations.